So if you have been following my other videos on the different influences of the seasons, then you know that we all the time have different cycles of the sun and the moon and other things around us. The influences our energy and our bodies all the time, and there's things we can do to learn to live in sync with these cycles to help harness more energy and sometimes settle the mind more. And yeah, we can, if we live in sync with this, then we can live throughout the year and just make use of these surrounding energies to help gain more energy throughout the whole year. So it's just useful tricks to know for life. And right now, at the moment, we are in the most yin period of the year. So it's the most cold period, and we have wintertime is here. So when there's most yin, it means that energy is settling. There's not as much influence of the yang energy and the sun on us. So the activity of everything is dying down, and also the energy in nature is also sinking, and everything, all the plants are starting to bring their energy deeper into the ground towards the roots. And the same thing happens in our body compared to the summer. In Chinese medicine and in Daoism, the energy sinks in towards the interior organs more in the winter, and particularly towards the kidneys, compared to in the summer where the yang energy is more expansive, so it brings the energy out towards the limbs and the surface of the body more. And at the moment when it's bringing the energy in, it's helping to consolidate the energy in the kidneys if we also look after the kidneys. And the kidneys in Chinese medicine is the organ that stores our Jing, which is our essence, or we could call it our life essence. It's the substance that are given to us from our parents at birth, and it's the essence that we use up through all developmental processes through life. And also some parts of it goes into our sexual fluids and to all other fluids in the body, and it's also the root of all of our congenital yin and yang energy in the body. So it's a very important substance. And in internal arts practice and meditation, we want this substance to be nice and consolidated, but also just for general health and vitality, because if this substance is strong, then the vitality and the sturdiness of the body will be better, and our energy levels will be better. So it's a worthwhile substance and organ to try to look after. I'm going to look into more how to do that during this session. Yeah, so you could call it that this time of year is also the night time of the year. Compared to the summer would be like the peak of the day, peak of activity and energy around us. And if we were to put all the coinciding cycles and the yin time at the same time, then that would be the winter time and the dark moon period. It's also more yin compared to the full moon, and the night time. If you have all of those together, you can imagine it's pretty pitch black and quiet and settled. It's like in the winter darkness, you can kind of almost feel that heavy darkness in a way, can't you? Whereas in the summer, it's more things going on all the time, and the energy feels more active, and it generates different parts of our being in the summer. So yeah, in the winter period, we can use this settling energy to help settle our mind, because the same thing that's going on in the surrounding environment will also be matched inside the body. So the yin will be able to settle, and it will be easier for the mind to settle if we do some practices or we just pay some attention to this surrounding energy at this time. So if you are someone who's struggling with like a very busy mind or racing thoughts, then this time of year is a perfect time to do some breathing practice and just connect with your body and just gain gain more calmness in the mind. Also pay extra attention to the things that you're doing that may be very counteractive to the racing thoughts in your mind. So these obvious things like not looking at your phone and your screen until late in the night, because then your body thinks it's the daytime, and all this activity in the mind will not set you up for a good night's sleep and help that body rejuvenate from the nighttime. And throughout the day as well, the different times nourish different organs. In the nighttime particularly is the one that replenishes and nourishes the kidney, so the sleep is very important for them to be healthy. Yeah, so a better thing to do at night to help the body fall into a deeper rest is to just mentally let go of the day and just let all of that disappear, and just try to let go and relax when you're in the bed, and maybe take 10 minutes to breathe and release the tension in the body to help the physical body settle. And because of the mind and body link, the mind will begin to settle as well. And another advice from the Chinese medicine classics during this time of year is to not let our desires run wild, and the mind, but yeah, desires. And the things that disperse this Jing life essence that we talked about earlier is our desires and our mind, and really strong emotions can do it as well, but particularly our base desires. So we want to help try to regulate them so they become at a healthier level. And one way to do that in everyday life is to cultivate irrelevance. So we want to have irrelevance towards these things that we may want in the physical world, like money, power, sex, all of these, cake, all of these things. If we have a healthy relationship to them, then it's easier for our Jing to also be healthy. So the irrelevance helps us not get as impacted by these things, because if we are relevant to if we have something or don't have something, then our emotions and our mind will be less disturbed by it, and the Jing will be less dispersed and can settle. But to do it to a higher level, then we also need sitting practice or meditation, because it's our senses and our mind that create these desires within us. So in meditation, we seal the senses, we close the eyes and bring our hearing inside, bring everything inside, and also stabilizing the mind. And that just draws the energy away from our sense faculties and from the physical outer world to the inner world, and that helps consolidate the energy. And when we manage to settle that to a higher degree, then that will help the Jing to consolidate. And it is the Jing that supports our Qi levels, which is our energy, which is also the movements of our emotions is based on our energy levels. So if our Jing is strong and it supports the Qi, then the emotions and our energy will also be more supported. And the Qi then supports our Shen, our spirit. So if these three substances are strong, then it's much healthier for the physical body to be healthy, our emotions and the mind and the spirit. If we're into meditation, we can use this consolidated Jing to make the body function at a higher level. And it is said in the classics that someone that has a very strong consolidated Jing, they exceed the normal capabilities of other human beings, because the body will be stronger, the endurance will be stronger, and also if they were to do spiritual practice, then that will help fuel the spirit to a much higher level. So it's very useful for internal cultivation as well. And another thing that's also advised in the winter is to have less sex than in the spring and the summer. And this is because the kidney energy and the Jing is very involved in our sexual activity, because the base desires are linked to the kidneys, and some of this Jing also gets moved into our sexual fluids because it wants to create a very potent fluid to be able to create another life, right? So there needs to be a lot of essence and vitality in there. for that to be able to take place. So it's advised to not overindulge in sex and lessen the amount a little bit to help keep the kidney energy strong. And especially for men, because men loses more Jing through ejaculation than women do through sex. But I think in general, for both genders, it's good to have a little bit less sex in the winter, because for women, even if we don't lose Jing through sperm, in sex the kidney energy still gets very activated. So I think it's good to keep that nice and strong. But it's easy to see if you overdo your kidneys or your Jing through either sexual activity or overwork, or maybe being too stressed, being in a fight and flight mode. That also puts an extra strain on the kidneys. And in Chinese medicine, there's different signs that we can use to see when we need to nourish this a little bit more. And the easy ones are if you get like an achy or stiff lower back and knees, because in Chinese medicine they're controlled by the kidneys. And also tinnitus is another sign of weaker kidneys, and frail self-esteem levels. That's also linked to the energy of the kidneys. And the foods that are advised in Chinese food therapy to help us to nourish this Jing are sort of seeds kind of things. So we have eggs, nuts, seeds and beans. They all help nourish the kidneys a lot. And you may like this advice a bit more than the previous one. So they say that you can go to bed earlier and go up later with the sunrise. So basically means that it's quite healthy for the body to sleep more during this period. So if you're feeling tired, then just know that if the body is like more tired in the winter, then it's actually quite good and healthy to just take a little bit more rest, a little bit more time in bed if you feel like you need that. Because since it is the night period of the year, it's like it is the time for replenishing and rejuvenating our energy. Because it's also said that the replenishment that we do and the storing of yin and energy that we do in the winter, that then helps fuel the energy throughout the rest of the year. So it's like a seed deep under the ground now, getting its nourishment and getting ready, and then in the spring when the yang energy starts to burst more again, then the energy starts to expand, and more drive and more energy in us is also developed. And obviously that will be able to be a lot stronger if our battery of our kidneys are stronger. But what it doesn't mean is that we shouldn't do any exercise at all throughout the winter, and we shouldn't be active at all. That is sometimes what people hear when you have this yin energy and the settledness and everything. But we don't want to end up getting weak and unhealthy throughout the winter. We're still going to look after our body and still be physically active and stuff. Remember, we still have the rising of yang throughout the day cycle. So in the beginning of the day, we have the yang growing, the energy growing, and then peaks around noon, and then it settles down towards the night again. So we still have this cycle of spring, summer, autumn throughout the day. It's just that the overall quality of winter is yin dominating yang. But yeah, make sure you still look after your physical body and your physical strength. And it's also useful to move the physical body because it helps to keep you warm, right? Because the pathogen that is damaging for the kidneys is actually cold. So it's good that if we make sure that we stay warm enough, and if we do physical exercise and the blood starts flowing and we get warm from the inside out, and that will help keep us nice and mobile, because that cold, if it comes in, can contract the muscles and the joints quite a lot in the winter. It's particularly around the back and the hips. So physical movement is very useful for that. It's just that the winter time wouldn't be the time where you would want to take on 2 new jobs and a massive big project and stay up late and maybe go out partying every night or doing massive workouts after those 2 jobs, working late into the night. then you're on risk of exhausting the kidney energy a bit. And in the spring, if you took on more things than you normally can handle, it wouldn't necessarily damage the body or be as tiring, exhausting for the body as it would in the winter time, because in the spring and the summer we have this yang energy that we can ride on that helps fuel our drive and our energy. So it's all about balance. So as I mentioned earlier, the pathogen that affects the kidneys is the cold, so we want to make sure that we keep the body warm. And it's really important that we keep the center of the body warm. So crop tops and that kind of thing is not great in the wintertime, going out in snow with that, because this is where the energy needs to be nice and consolidated to be a good storehouse for the rest of the body. Yeah, if the cold comes in, obviously contracts the joints and that, but also it can weaken the fires of the body. And in Chinese medicine we have different fires in the organs, and particularly a big one is between the kidneys in the back, called the Ming fire, and this one governs the transformation of fluids throughout the whole body and helps us convert fluids and substances into energy that we can use. We're involved in metabolism, and yeah, if that one gets weak, then we tend to get a build-up of fluids, particularly through the legs, and lower energy and coldness. So it's worth trying to keep the body warm. And the other main fire is the Emperor fire, which is the fire of the heart, which has very much to do with our moods. And so if this heart energy is nice and strong, then it's easy to feel lighter in our spirit and in our mind, easy to connect out with people, and healthier expression outwards, basically. And yeah, so these two fires very much govern our mental and emotional upness, if you can call it in that way. Yeah, last winter I did an acupuncture treatment on a woman who works out in the cold winter for hours and hours and hours. So she has got some invading cold throughout her body, and the fluids, the transformation of fluids are a little bit weak, so she has a little bit of build-up of fluids in the legs, and she's complaining about them feeling heavy. So we did a treatment to help move fluids and generate that conversion of energy stronger. So I put in some needles to help tonify kidney yang and the fires particularly. And when she fell asleep during treatment, and when she woke up after treatment, she said that she felt very energized, but she also found it strange because she said she felt hopeful all of a sudden, hopeful and excited about the future. And I just thought it was a nice example for how these fires also influence the mental, emotional aspect and not just the physical body, because the treatment or the complaints that she mainly had was about the physical body, but it also helped that drive and that enjoyment and hopefulness for life as well, because those fires were lit a bit more. And she also said the days after that the legs felt lighter as well, and you can see a difference. So after a few treatments, it was a good change to see, and just a good example for how these fires work in the body. And in the winter, it's particularly important that we help to warm the body from the inside out through our diet as well, because diet, the kind of foods that we eat, has a massive impact on our body. So we want to eat more long-cooked stews, because that adds more warmth, with warming spices like clove and pepper and ginger and garlic. They're very warming to help cultivate these fires. And also, if you cook things in the oven or over a fire, that gives more warming qualities to the food as well. And obviously we want to try to avoid cold foods like ice creams and ice. Those are pretty obvious, because it puts that temperature down in the body and the quality of cold in. And also, things that aren't cooked also has a more cooling quality. So salads and raw foods you want to limit them in the winter and make sure that the amount of cooked and warming foods are much higher than salads. And switch your cooling or cold drinks for something hot. I didn't have a see-through cup, but this is hot water with cinnamon stick and some ginger, because they have warming qualities and properties in Chinese medicine. And there's also a little bit of honey in here, because that helps to fuel the qi, but also the yin fluids, because the spices, if you have a lot of spices, they can be a bit drying because they are so heating. So if we add a little bit of honey, then that adds a little bit of balance with the yin and the moisture as well. And what I forgot to mention about the desires is that we also want to deal with our desires in our mind, even if we don't act on them. Because, for example, if we think about something that we really want and the cravings are really big, but we still don't act on it, then that will still affect the Jing substance in the body and disperse it. So, same with watching porn. If we watch porn, then that stimulates the kidneys and the Jing, and it will weaken the energy. So we also want to moderate and regulate the thoughts and mental stimulation to help strengthen the health of the physical body. So an example for like worst case scenario of what you can do in the winter if you wanted to live out of sync of it, then that would basically mean like going out in the snow with no shoes and crop top and living on mojitos, because they have a lot of ice and peppermint and lime, the very cooling qualities in Chinese food therapy, and watching porn all day and having loads of sex and taking on more work, overworking yourself, staying up late, not resting at all, and maybe watching lots of horror films, because fear and stress that hyperstimulates the kidneys as well. Then you have a very good recipe for draining your kidneys in the wintertime. So it's just about, then you know a little bit more of what choices are more beneficial to make in the winter. Some of those are obvious anyway, but it's just interesting how they particularly relate to the kidneys and wintertime, and how we can adjust these things throughout the year, I think, to help just fuel our energy and fuel this positive and energy and replenish ourselves at the right times and the right amounts.